Hey everyone, Dan Abbate here. It's a Sunday morning down here in Florida. We were supposed to be having a hurricane, but we didn't. We didn't even really have a thunderstorm. So not a lot of exciting stuff going on down here. But I do have some list of exciting questions to go over today. So I appreciate everyone sending in their questions, and I'm looking forward to answering those right now. So if you guys want to begin, let's get started here. Okay, so our first question comes from Shelly Merrill. How do I get everything done in a day as a leader in my company as it grows? She's in the fire protection and safety company. As my company is growing, I am finding it harder and harder to get everything done. What do you do to manage it all? That's a good question, Shelly. So here's my main note for everybody when they're in their business or trying to figure out how to spend their time. The goal is to, in fact, I have a book on my shelf right here. Look at that. Look how convenient that is. There's a book here called Time Really Is Money by Rob Slee. It's kind of a thick book, but it's pretty easy to read. I saw Rob speak maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, and he gave me his book because it was one of those things where they give you the book. And basically the whole gist of it is you have to know what your hourly rate is. As entrepreneurs, a lot of times our hourly rate is not really a concern. We don't think that way, which is good. We shouldn't be thinking that way, like in terms of like, I want to trade my time for money. But regardless of what you do, you're trading your time for money. It's just you're either trading it directly and someone's paying you per hour, or the work that you're doing is generating a certain amount of money. And then if you spent so many hours doing that, that's kind of what your like adjusted hourly rate is, or estimated hourly rate, or whatever you want to say. And you need to keep raising that, right? Everyone only has the same amount of like hours in the day. So if you're going to succeed and you're going to have more money than somebody else, the only way to do that is to become more efficient with your time and to be able to drive more value in the hours that you work. So your question was, how do I get everything done in a day as a leader in my company as it grows? So a lot of times when you start a company, you're doing a lot of stuff, you're wearing a lot of hats, you're doing operations, you're doing sales, you're doing all these different things. And then you become busy to the point where you don't have any more time, which is, I think, what you're alluding to here. So the next thing you have to look at is all right, how am I spending my time? Am I spending it on activities that I can pay someone else $10 an hour to do? And then when I pay them that $10 an hour, now I have my time freed up to go do a $20 an hour activity or a $200 an hour activity. And that's really like that's the whole entrepreneurial game, is getting out there and knowing how to raise your hourly rate and your hourly mindset too. A lot of times entrepreneurs they get into a business from an operational perspective, so they're doing a lot like with their hands, let's say. um, and then as you grow, you have to elevate yourself out of that tactical hand type operations to you know, management initially, and then eventually a strategy. You know, you spend more and more of your time uh, on strategy. Well, first it kind of goes like this: all operations. Then you start to be able to manage people because now you're hiring people. So now you're doing more time on management until you find yourself only in management. And then you've been doing kind of strategy all along, and now you're doing mostly strategy. Like that's kind of the life cycle essentially of an entrepreneur, is that as you go up and your business grows, you can focus more and more of your time on strategy. And in order to get there, you have to eventually hire people. So I would say that if I don't know how big your company is or where you're at, but if you're feeling overwhelmed for time, you probably have a lot of tasks. I would bet money that you have a lot of tasks that you can hand off to somebody else. And it might be a little scary because you're going to literally have to take money out of your own pocket to pay this person. But it's an investment, because now you've bought your time back for $10, and you're going to then now uh, reallocate your time for $200, whatever you want to, however you want to look at it. So um, I hope that helps. Don't be shy to reach out to the AO family, to me, if you're dealing with hiring or taking your next steps and all of that. Cool. And this is the book again. This is a great book, Rob Slee. Time Really Is Money. I'm not getting anything for showing this to you. It just occurred to me. It's just a good book. Okay. Yolindi de Goivia. Would you suggest a gradual increase in prices or a one-time price increase across the board and let things settle? Uh, Lindy is in the custom high-quality throw pillows and inserts business. And she says, I've always had a hard time pricing my products and services correctly. I've researched online formulas on pricing and looked at other retailers. However, I know my prices need to be higher. My customers get an excellent product and a customer service, so I know my product can stand by a higher ticket price. I feel that a higher price will reflect a quality product better and in turn produce a better customer and return business. Okay, this is a great question. So pricing is something that's way overlooked by companies in general, but especially entrepreneurial companies, because we just kind of set our prices based on whatever the market is and we don't put a lot of thought into it. So I'm glad to hear that you're actually thinking about it right now, because that's an important part of it. So my recommendation is you use the word prices need to be higher. You said prices need to be higher. I'm wondering what you're basing that on, because if you're basing that on your cost structure, and like you're wanting to make a profit, that's a good thing to think about because if you're not making a profit currently, or if you're really marginal, then you may want to consider, raising your prices and understanding your market better to see if you can raise your prices. Because if you can't raise your prices, maybe you're in the wrong business, or maybe you've got to rebrand. So let's talk about brand for a second as it relates to that. Think about Converse, right? The shoes. What does a pair of Converse cost? $50, $40, I don't know, $30 to $50, something like that. Not a lot. And then if you look at like Louis Vuitton gym shoes that are probably like $1,000, right? So let's say $50 for the Converse, $1,000 for the brand name, whatever kind of like these super fancy shoes that you're gonna want. Are they 20 times better? No, they're not 20 times better. The brand is 20 times better. They spent money on the brand. They convinced their audience that this is worth this. Now there's probably better quality certain things. They probably have some gold on them or something like that increases the production costs, of course. So they're a little bit better from a cost perspective. But at the end of the day, it's just a shoe. And the difference is the brand. So when you start talking about wanting to raise your prices, but you're unsure if the market's going to allow you to do that, I think that's a branding issue. And if the market is such, so you have two different ways to go with this. You can either say, all right, I'm going to increase my prices because my brand already has enough brand power, pricing power, to be able to do that. Or I want to get there, so I'm going to focus on how do I position my brand to be more exclusive, more high end, so that I can price, better. Or you can look at it the other way and say, I don't want to build a brand in that way. I'd rather compete for efficiency and quality at this level at the price point I'm already at, and then you're going to have to look at your operations and increase your efficiency so that you can continue to offer at the prices that you're at and still make the money that you want to make. A lot of times how I approach these things is I'm not much of a, I like to make a nice margin. I don't like minimal margins type businesses. Like I just stay away from them. Like if I can't figure out how I'm going to create a nice fat margin there, then I don't get involved. And so in this particular case, what I would recommend, like how I would approach this, whether it's right or not, I'm just telling you how I would approach it, is I would say, okay, here are my costs to produce and deliver the product and do the customer service, all my operational kind of costs. How much money do I want to make on top of that? Well, I want to make 20%, 30% more on top of that. Let's call it 30% more. I want to make 30% more. So now my total costs are, my fixed costs to deliver are $1,000, let's say, just to keep it round numbers. And my variable costs are $20 per delivered item. So I would just do the math on that. And I would say, okay, well, how many items do I need to cover my fixed cost and at what price? And then I would just divide all that out and I would come up with the price that works for me. And then if that price doesn't match the market, then like I said, I either have to do some brand work and figure out how to reach the market that will pay the price that I want, or if I can't get them to do that, then maybe I look at a completely different approach. So yeah, and pricing is tricky too, because if you don't have reoccurring business right now, which in turn, you said that you're looking for return business and a better customer, which I think is great. If you don't have that now, raising your prices in one shot doesn't really make much of a difference, because you'll either raise the prices and you'll just continue to sell the same volume, or you'll raise your prices and all the sales will stop. Either way, you'll have your answer, and you don't have to worry about discouraging your good customers that are reoccurring, because they're not there, it sounds like. Kind of a funny side note on that is one of the products that I sold once and back in the day was Big Hot Dog. If you go to bighotdog.com, you can still see it. There's funny videos. We have a Guinness Records thing as well associated with it. But that product, I went through this exact same pricing idea. Like when we did all the calculations and we got it all going to ship the thing, it ended up costing us like $35 to ship this thing. Like that was our cost. And then when we first went to market, we were like, all right, well, let's set it to $60. That's a little margin. Like we still have to pay our marketing and stuff out of that. So we started doing that. We started selling them. Like they started selling quick, but really weren't making a lot of money. And the marketing was really eating up a lot of it. And I was like, boy, for this to really work, I got to get up around like $90, $95 with the whole thing. And so I just started doing some tests. I mean, a great thing about online is you can crank the prices up for a couple days, see what happens, and drop them back down again. Nobody cares. And you can just take that information. So we raised the price from $60, whatever it was, to $90, $95. We had a little kind of a fun thing in there where we set the price actually to $130 and then said it was on sale at $95. And this is something we were just selling $60, by the way. So we, doubled it and then discounted it to $95. And then at that point, the volume didn't change. That's the thing that's great about pricing, is that if you're not sure about your market, it's possible that you could crank your price up like that and your volume will be exactly the same. You're just afraid that you're going to lose all your business. And maybe you will. But then just lower it again, right? Like I'd rather do the test all in, like make sure it happens, especially in a scenario where it's low risk, because you can always lower the price again and just go back to where you were. I'd want to know, because in this case we kept selling the same volume, but now our margin, which used to be $30 minus all of our marketing costs, which we were slightly profitable on, now we're making an additional $30 plus on top of that. So like now we're making a lot of money, which is great. So then we said the same thing again. We were like, okay, well, maybe we can raise the price again. We still got the same volume. We haven't hit the threshold yet. So then we raised it. So we said, we remember our retail price was $130. We were discounting it down to $95. And then we said, let's try to go to like $105. Like let's say the discount is from $130 down to $105. As soon as we broke $100 as the discount price, sales stopped. Like they dropped like 80% instantly. So we were like, great, we know our threshold. Like we know exactly where people's minds are at, that as soon as we go over that $100 mark as the all-in cost for them, sales stopped. Like it was very clear. So then we knew that our top end, and we knew we were optimized our price to $95. So playing those kind of like games, don't be afraid about it. Like see what you can come up with. Like do a test somewhere and see how it works. Because you might find that cranking up the price might be really easy to do. It just depends. Okay, sorry, I went on a detour with that one. I hope that was helpful to Yolindi and anyone who was listening. Okay, next question. Erica Wilkinson. What information do you have on applying for a business grant? Which site is best? I have a cleaning company and an eBay store, but these are just stepping stones to get where I want. But in the meantime, I want to keep pushing until I get to where I want to be. So first things first about the grants. I have a grant writing company. It's one of the companies that I'm invested in. And we do grant writing for nonprofits as well as grants for for-profits. The bad news I have for you is that there's really no grants available for for-profits that are not like really heavy research or technology focused. You might be able, and then those are going to be millions of dollar type grants that are that are super competitive, and you probably already have millions of dollars invested into the getting the technology as far as it is. Like little startup type grants, they don't really exist. You might be able to find like a $5,000 thing here or there from like a local nonprofit or something like that. But for the most part, it's few and far between. So that's kind of the bad news on that one from my experience. And if you happen to find something, send me an email. Tell me about it. Tell me I was wrong, because I'd love to share that with other people too if there's something I overlooked. But I do want to kind of make a point of one other thing in your question here. You say I have a cleaning company and an eBay store, but these are just stepping stones to get to where I want to be. So I question that a little bit. That's my bigger thing that jumps out at me from your question. You have two businesses that both of them you say you don't really want to do those businesses anyway. You're just trying to get somewhere else. So it goes back to this book again, right? Time really is money. You only have so much time to spend. So my feeling is why are you not doing the thing that you actually want to be doing? Because if you're not really committed to doing the other two as like, this is the thing and I'm moving this forward, you're not going to get, I don't believe, you're not going to get where you want to go doing it that way, unless I'm misunderstanding the whole game plan. But that's my thought that jumps out at me. I'd say you're always going to be best at and most committed to the thing that you're excited about, and that this is my thing. And maybe this thing changes. Maybe you do it for a while and you say, oh, this isn't my thing anymore, and that's fine. But using one thing to get to another thing, I'd be careful of that. I don't know. Again, if reach out to me, we can talk about it. And maybe I'm misinterpreting, but I would be cautious of doing things that you shouldn't be doing to get something else, because a lot of times you get distracted by the things that you shouldn't be doing. Okay, next question. Allison Koyanagi, I think I pronounced that right. What are strategies you would use to resell a client when your previous company contact leaves and now the new company contact doesn't believe in your services? That's a good question. Some more detail here. I own a digital marketing agency and I am having issues with one of my clients who recently changed their chair of the board. The new chair, who was an old school mindset, does not understand the value of social media and how it relates to growing their brand. I have to create a presentation to prove to the new chair that the social media directly relates to their brand growth. My other clients do not have this issue, as I've never had an issue with explaining the value of social media relating to their brand growth before. The new chair does not seem to understand any of the explanation I've presented to him so far, because he believes that traditional marketing methods like advertising in the newspaper will bring more results. This issue may come up later with new clients who think the same way. Thank you for your time and expertise. Okay. Two comments on this. One, it always sucks when your contact leaves and now you got to fight to keep your business. That sucks. My dad was in manufacturing, and he lost 80% of his business, which was millions and millions of dollars worth of business, when that exact same thing happened. So it happens to everybody. That's just the way it is. What I would say about that is a couple things. First, you're going to have to show value in a tangible way in your business. And this goes for your business and everyone else's businesses. It's really easy to sell a customer if you can sell them on an idea that it's written down. Like, it's not just like out in the world, like, oh yeah, we're gonna give you brand recognition. People are gonna know who you are. Like, that's very vague. Like, but if you can say, we're going to spend this much money, we're going to do this over this amount of time, and then in that amount of time, we're going to generate this much sales, this many sales for you, and this is how it plays all the way out. Like, you can see each step along the way. You can see the conversion rates at every single step. That's what you want to get to in your sales presentation, because it's no longer a sales presentation at that point. It's an explanation of what you're going to do and how much money they're going to make. You're essentially utilizing their business and the structure of their business to generate you money. All right? You and them, but that's like the way you have to look at it. So you need to pick clients based on your ability to use their infrastructure to make you money. I'm going to say it again. That's what you're doing. That's what, anytime you're giving service to another customer, that's how you have to look at it. This goes for everybody. When you look at a customer, you don't say, how am I going to convince them to give me money? Because then that's going to be an uphill battle. That's not going to work very well. But if you say to them, I'm going to show you how I'm going to make you money, now they're listening. And if you can deliver on that, why wouldn't they do that, right? If you say to them, hey, pay me $1,000 and you're going to make $10,000, you, the business, just, got your $1,000 out of them, and they're gonna up the amount of money that they spend with you. They're gonna tell other people about it. You've got to get down to show how your work produces a return on investment for them, especially in a marketing business. Like that's the hardest one. Well, I guess in a way it could be the easiest one too, because most of the time marketing companies don't pay attention to that. They just start talking about like, oh, we're going to get you 1,000 clicks on Facebook. We're going to get you 1,000,000 clicks over here. And well, yes, so what? You're spending money to do that. That's not hard to do. If you can tell me though that you're going to do all that and then show me how it's going to track through to make me revenue in a greater amount than I'm spending, that's a completely different conversation. So regardless if this guy gets it or not, and then part of it comes down to that. My second comment on this is, don't educate your clients. Like stop, like if they don't get it, if they don't understand, you can waste so much time trying to educate people. Like I know other people will disagree with me on this. I hate educating clients. I've gone into business models, one most recently, where part of the whole marketing and PR strategy is, well, we're going to have to kind of educate our market. Oh, I don't want to educate my market. That sucks. I'm gonna educate a market. Like, how much is that going to cost me, and how long is that going to take? Don't educate people. Like, give them your best shot. Like I said, lay it out. Give it, whatever. And if they don't get it, you got to move on and find the people that do get it. Because I guarantee you, if you're able to show value, there's going to be a lot of people that understand what you're saying, and it's going to be really easy to talk to them. Don't waste your time with people that are telling you, well, I'm just going to advertise in the newspaper. Because if that's what they're going to do, let them do it. It's not going to do anything. Because if they don't have the metrics and don't have the way to measure it, they're going to fail at that, and then they're going to come back to you later. So I hope that answer was somewhat helpful. But yeah, it really comes down to showing value. And again, all businesses, not just marketing, any type of business you're in, show them how what you're doing for them is going to generate money for them. It goes back to time really is money, right? They're spending their money and their time to do something with you because now they have an opportunity cost with that because they didn't hire someone else. They're not trying anything else. You're the one doing this task for them. They're committed to you. So show them how that commitment is going to generate more than what they're investing. Put it on paper. Okay. Or in an Excel spreadsheet, more likely, not paper. That's another thing. Don't make big fancy presentations. Just show them, in my opinion, how I like to see stuff. I just want to see the numbers. Like, just show me how it's going to make me money. All the flowery stuff, you can show that to somebody else. But I just want to see the numbers. Steve Roush says, how can I teach myself to adjust from a freelance mindset to a more consistent business leader mindset and grow my company and the team? More description here. I have a media company. We offer a long list of services. Many are specific to high-end imagery for commercials or live events, and we are usually called in for jobs as they happen. Every day is different as each job is custom to the project at hand. Sometimes I am plugged into a position. Other times I am the lead on an entire 2-week project. Usually after the show or project is done, we are done and searching for the next one. I want to be more engaged with clients so we can help them realize their projects not one at a time, but strategically over time. That is done by working together more often and becoming a trusted partner in success. If I can achieve that consistency, I shouldn't have to chase the next one so hard. Awesome, Steve. Yes. So first things first, the freelance mindset. I understand from your explanation below that you're equating the freelance mindset to what I call a jobber mindset. A jobber, chasing jobs, going job to job to job to job. That's the way that I look at it. So yeah, you're right. You don't want to be doing that. So a couple things. So if you want to be a business leader instead of a freelancer, the first thing you have to do, and maybe you've done this, maybe you haven't, is you have to take, kind of like to the other question from earlier, you've got to be aware of how you're spending your time. Are you doing production? It sounds like you personally are engaged with these clients at their different projects, which is fine, but at some point you're not going to be able to be the person who is doing all the work. So if you're not already pulling yourself out of doing all the work, you're going to need to figure out how to do that. And even if you have a team, but you're still there every day overseeing them, you're going to have to keep elevating yourself away. Like that's the first way to kind of get out of that freelance mindset, is you have to take your operations out of your day-to-day, your personal day-to-day activity. And if you can accomplish that, you're breaking that freelance mindset, and now you're running more like a business. You're operating as a business leader, as opposed to just someone who's doing the work and maybe hired a couple of people to help them. So that's kind of point one. The second point is you're totally on the right track as far as your reoccurring revenue. You don't want to be a jobber. Jobber type businesses, like you said, you're always chasing the next dollar. You're creating no enterprise value. You can work in your business for the next 20 years and it's going to have no value at the end, because no one's going to want to buy a business that is based on just one more sale. If you're not selling a reoccurring revenue client, you're kind of wasting your time. So you have to be able to sell something that's reoccurring. And so, like for example, with the grant writing business, just as another point with that, when we started that business, it came out of a freelance type activity, producing grants for nonprofits, onesie twosie, whenever the nonprofits felt like it. And so what we did with that was, the first thing we said was, no more onesie twosies. We only work with clients who are able and willing to commit to a monthly partnership amount, which is $2,000 a month in the case of that business. So we started there. We said, this is what we need in order to do this, and for us to be successful with us, and for us to be happy with it, because why else would you do it? So always bring it kind of back around to you as you're designing your product and service, to like what's valuable to you. Start there. And then you have to do what I said in the last question. You have to then take what's valuable to you and then show how it's more valuable to them. And so we did that, and we broke that down. We built a production process that had multiple people involved, and that was scalable and that was modular. We built a whole custom software that supported the whole thing as we were growing. It wasn't all in one shot. We did it as we were growing. But now we could do that stuff because we had customers paying us $2,000 a month consistently. They weren't just disappearing all the time. So I would say, look at how you operate and who your customers are and what the services you're providing, and figure out how to create a productized service that makes them want to pay you on a monthly basis, because that'll fix all your cash flow issues. And then it'll allow you to have that relationship that you're looking for. And again, we can go into specifics about it if you want to reach out. I need to know more about how it all works to give specifics. But anyway, so that's that one. All right, next question. Allison Koyanagi. What are things I can do to learn how to be a better leader? Good question. Digital marketing agency. I've recently hired someone to help me with all the tasks I don't have time to do myself anymore. That's great. Since this is my first hire, I don't think I'm very proficient in delegating, yet as my new assistant, didn't understand my directions the first time, even though I put together a task list and detailed explanation of each task. All right, great. Congratulations first that you hired an assistant. Somebody to help you with all that stuff. You're thinking in terms of, I have to get rid of this work that I'm doing and give it to somebody else. That's the right exact thing to do. Congratulations on making that giant leap. Now you've hit the first roadblock. The first roadblock is, I don't know how to tell this person what to do. I'm really bad at that too. I'm not a good, I usually just kind of wave my hands around and say, hey, this is kind of how I do it. Now you do it. And then they don't know what I want. So you're a step ahead of me in the fact that you've already written down your processes and your task lists and all that. So that's great. You've already taken that leap. What I would suggest that you do is, people are different types of learners, right? So maybe you wrote it down in a way that work that you understand, but maybe this person has a different learning style and hears things differently, understands things differently. So I would recommend one more way of conveying what you want this person to do so use your same content, your task list and the details of how to do it, and use Loom. If you haven't used Loom, or anyone out there, Loom is an awesome plugin. It works for Chrome. I don't know if they have it for other stuff, but it's on Chrome. And it allows you to anything that you open up in your browser, it allows you to point and like talk and like explain to people what's going on. Or if you don't use Loom, use something else and make videos is what I'm getting at, to explain your entire process. Because then once you make that library of videos for that particular job, now the person has multiple ways of potentially understanding what you want them to do, because you've shown them. Like, it would be the same thing when you make a video. It's the same exact thing that as if they asked you, hey, show me this, right? That's what you're going to do. Hey, show me this. This is how it works, blah, 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 blah. So I would consider making videos for all those tasks and all those things that you've already outlined that the person doesn't quite understand what you want them to do. If you do that and you're still having issues, it's possible this isn't the right person. I'm just throwing that out there. I don't know. The person might be perfect, but also if you show them all these things and you give them all these resources and they still kind of make the excuse of, well, I don't really know what you want me to do, or I'm not, oh, well, I didn't know that. There's a certain amount of where it's half your responsibility and half their responsibility. So if you're constantly hearing, I don't know what you want me to do, or I didn't know that, well, take some responsibility, person, and like find out. Like, don't, like, if you're going to them and saying, hey, did you do this? And they say, oh, no, I didn't, because I didn't know how to do that. And then they just stop talking there. That's not a good sign, because you ideally want them to realize they don't know what you want them to do, and then will come to you proactively and say, hey, I need help, show me how to do this, because now they've taken ownership of the role. You want someone who takes ownership. You don't want someone who just waits for you to check in and then them to say, oh, I don't know, and then you have to like follow up with them and like always babysit them. You don't want to be a babysitter. So if you have employees, this goes for everybody. If you have employees that you feel like you're babysitting, like that you're always like pulling them to do stuff, you really trap yourself in it's one step above that freelance mindset. But if you're babysitting everybody, it's still like the whole operation depends on you, and that's not going to scale, that's not going to grow, and it's going to be kind of a miserable existence. So just be aware if you're not able to tell people something and then have them do it and take responsibility and ownership of it. And there's ways to help facilitate that, which from a process perspective, which you have to look at. Okay, and again, if you want to talk about those things specifically, reach out through AO to me. Let's see, where was I? Here we are. Okay, next question is from Ty Green. How do you recommend finding top sales talent? Would you use some of the freelance sites or post the job locally? And it says, I'm building my software business on the side while working a full-time job. I have a SaaS business geared toward the aviation industry. The decision makers I need to connect with are available during normal business hours. While I'm at work, I need to find a reliable sales rep that can make calls during business hours. Ideally, they would have the ability to build a pipeline and work through the entire sales cycle. However, if I could find someone that could just schedule demos for me, I could do demos at night and on my days off. Thanks. All right, Ty. So here's the thing with salespeople. Salespeople like to make money. So if you're proposing something to salespeople, it doesn't matter where you post it. If you're proposing something that is not going to be clear on how they make money, I've seen a lot of postings, and seen a lot of entrepreneurs kind of come up with this idea like, oh, I'll just get a sales rep who will just sit there all day and do this for me, and then I'll just pay them a commission. Okay, if that's your pitch to the sales guy, you're probably gonna have a hard time getting anybody, because they need to be able to see. They have to, if they're going to work for free until they get a commission, that commission better be huge, right? Like, and if you're in a SaaS business, I would imagine each sale, I don't know this, maybe I'm wrong, but I would imagine each sale is probably not a huge number. I mean, how much do you charge? Again, depending on what it is, That might be wrong, but if you're charging $50 a month, $200 a month, $500 a month, um, that's, in my opinion, wouldn't be high enough to entice a salesperson to just take full ownership for no money. Because even if your lifetime value of your client is, you know, $500 a month for 10 years, you're going to have to give them a pretty big slice of that 10 years up front, which you're going to have to pay out of pocket, which is going to give you cash flow issues, in order to get them to do that. So I would say be very specific and clear, and maybe you already are, and we can talk about this, but be very specific and clear what your sales product is like, not product, your sales position is like, and how they make money and how they're going to be successful, not just how they're going to make you successful. It goes back to that showing value thing again. It's the same exact conversation. If you're telling your clients that you're going to drive revenue for them, let's say, you show them how they're going to make more money than what they pay you. It's the same thing with the salespeople. If you can show the salesperson why your product at market is going to be valuable to the client, and then also how going through that sales process is going to be valuable to the salesperson, like you have to map that out so that they can see it. Then you won't have any problem finding good salespeople. If you don't have that clearly defined, or you're not even sure your sales process actually works, like you don't even, like you yourself can't close stuff on a consistent basis by doing the tasks, then it's a good possibility that your salespeople won't be able to do that either. And even if you can find them, they'll fuddle along and they'll waste time and you'll waste money with them, and it just won't go anywhere. So I'd say be very specific about what your sales process looks like and what your sales structure, like your commissions and all that sort of stuff, look like, and why it's valuable to the salesperson. And if they're not going to be able to make at least 100 grand, you know, 80 to 100 minimum, it might be a tough road. And if you can't get them to make that much, then what you're going to have to do is then you have to take your sales process, break it up into a production process, and then plug in a bunch of people at each point where you're going to pay them a fixed amount. This guy makes the calls, this guy does the follow-up, this guy does whatever, and then now you know your total sales production process costs this much, and then then you know how it all fits into your bigger business model. You got to create these business models that include sales and marketing as part of your cost structure. Don't just look at operations. That goes for everybody, of course. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Again, reach out. I'm easy to find. Jason Antonino. How can I get the 30,000 foot view of my business when I feel like a crop duster most of the time? How do you do it? I'm a sole proprietor building an aromatherapy consultancy personal brand online, and I'm having a challenge thinking strategically with a plan. Okay. So what you named it, thinking strategically. So this goes back to some of the other conversations we had earlier in this session. Right now you said, yeah, you're a sole proprietor. It's just you. You're doing the operational stuff. You're doing all the stuff with your hands that you got to do because somebody's got to do it. Totally great. You're crop dusting, as you said. I loved it. Great imagery. What I would say is that you have to reserve time. Put it on your schedule. Wherever you put your schedule for exercise, or you put your schedule for, dinner with the kids, or however you got your schedule set up, find a spot that you designate as strategic planning time. Do it every week. Don't do it just like once a quarter or something like that, because then you're going to forget about it. Do it every week. Every Monday at 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., I will do strategic thinking. And during that hour, don't get distracted. Don't blow it off. Don't do the other thing that's more important, because we've all heard this term, important versus urgent, right? So I guess in that case, you're going to get distracted by the urgent thing, which is the operational stuff, and you're going to want to do the important thing, which is the strategic thing. So don't let the urgent stuff take you away from the important stuff. So in your Monday 4 o'clock strategic thinking time, just sit there quietly. If you don't even know what to do, just sit there quietly and think. Don't pay attention to your email, turn off your phone, just sit there quietly and think about where you're going. And then from those 1 hour sessions, and then it will become more deliberate than just sitting there and thinking. You'll start to see the vision of where you're going. You'll start to see kind of how strategy fits into the work you do on a day-to-day basis. If you don't take that time, you're going to be crop dusting forever. And it'll only get worse, because if you start to get successful and you're like really starting to go, you're going to have more and more stuff on you, and you'll have even less time to think strategically. You'll just be constantly doing, which again, if you're just constantly doing, it's just a job. You're just working for yourself, but you're not upgrading your value on a day-to-day basis. So yeah, take that time, put it on your schedule, do it every week, make a habit of it. And then as you grow your business, eventually that strategy time will become wider and wider and be more of your time, to the point where that's all you do for the business is just strategy, 90% strategy, let's say. That's the goal. So if you don't start doing your strategy now, you're never going to do it. Perfect. All right. Sarah Hamilton, what would you suggest is the best way to perform the necessary market research in the areas I'm interested in expanding into? Other than basic demographics such as average income, household size, etc., would you think what are the most important when making the type of decisions? I own a barbershop in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Currently, we have 2 locations, and my goal is to open more locations. Okay, so what I would ask, I always ask questions in response to a question. So sorry, guys, that I do that a lot, but hopefully it gets everybody thinking. If you're just looking at average income and household size, and you're just using that to decide where you're at, I would say you don't really know your go-to-market strategy good enough. If you're going to have multiple locations, you've got 2, great. If you're going to have 3, if you're going to have 5, if you're going to have 20, you need to have a go-to-market strategy that's repeatable. So when you have a go-to-market strategy, you know exactly how you communicate with your target audience. You know exactly how you get them in the door after you open up. You know exactly where to put your location, because you know how you're going to communicate with them. It all comes from knowing how to start up a new location. So I would say take the time to define who your ideal client is with the basics that you described here, and also with all of the kind of more I've heard it described as like create an avatar of your clients, right? So maybe there's 3 or 4 types of avatars that would represent each of your client base, and then from those avatars you can decide on your go-to-market strategy of like, how do I best communicate with all 4 of these people? Give them names, give them ages, decide if they're male or female, like decide who these people are based on your other 2 locations. Who are your big spenders? Maybe 80%, the 80-20 rule, right? 20% of your current clientele are probably generating 80% of revenue for those locations. So know for sure who those 20% are in your current locations, and then make sure those are an important part of your go-to-market strategy at this new location. I would say if you do that exercise and you really know what your go-to-market strategy will be, then when you look at your next location, you'll be able to know more specifically what to look for as you enter a new market. Yeah, I think that's probably all I have on that. I would probably also point everyone else to some great case studies as it relates to Uber, Yelp, Airbnb, anybody that's kind of like has sort of like some location-based elements to their businesses. They all start out in one spot, and then they know it very, very well. So like you say barbershop in Fayetteville, North Carolina, yeah, you've got 2 locations in the same city. Great. Don't go to another city. Understand, or like if you go to another city, it's got to be right next door. Like spiral it outward. Grow your numbers concentrically from the center. That's that's the way these big guys have done it. That's what works. And if you know your go-to-market strategy, you should be able to do that. Okay, next question. McBan Najankanji. Should we and how should we continue to pay one of our independent contractors who does not have legal status in the U.S.? We have an excellent worker who knows the trade very well and is very loyal to our company. He is someone I can trust to run every job on his own with little to no supervision and has so much field experience he can instantly solve tough problems. The problem is we have been paying this worker with cash and taking the hit for all the taxes for the money that we withdraw for him. We reached out to this worker and proposed him payment through check, but he denied. Even tried to incentivize him with a raise, but he denied, and responded, "The day you start writing me checks is the day I drop off the company truck and hand the keys." This worker is an immigrant and very hardworking. He would hurt the company if we lost this person. It would hurt the company if we lost this person. But also, we cannot afford to take the hit we are foreseeing on with taxes in the future years. He does not seem to want to even go that route, and I am sure he is aware of ways to make it work, but I think he is more afraid of his status. How do we convince this worker to pay by check, if any? And do we fire him? Do we keep him and start looking for replacements? Please advise. Okay. So this is a good question. The first thing that jumps to mind is that I know how valuable a good employee is. We all do. If you have a good employee, it goes back to that value, like the value that you provide to your customers and the value that you provide to your salespeople and the value they provide back to you, right? It's the same thing. If this worker is as great as you say that he is, I don't know the exact amount you're talking about in taxes, but in my brain, if you hired this person, if this was a regular W-2 employee, you're going to be paying 15% in payroll taxes. Well, each of you will be. So you'll be paying 7.5%. Let's say after all the baloney business, it's like 13, 14% in payroll taxes to have a W-2 employee. If you're taking money out, which I assume it means that you're showing a profit and then paying your taxes on that profit and then paying this person. That's kind of how you're doing the taxes. So it's going to be costing you, I don't know how much money you're making. Maybe you're making a ton of money, but in the early stages, it's really only costing you whatever the lower tax brackets are, right? 10%, 15, 20%, something like that. So you're paying this person 20% more because of the taxes, let's say, than you would be otherwise. If this person is able to manage themselves, is able to solve tough problems, is able to do all these things, I would say do the calculation and figure out what it would cost you to hire a person who can do all those things, like a new person. Just do the math, compare it to the market. If that person is not able to, if a new person isn't able to do the same thing for the same price, at that somewhere below that 20% premium that you think you're currently paying, then probably get rid of him. If you can hire somebody cheaper, why not, right? I suspect, though, possibly, that what you're saying is probably true. The guy's really great, and if you're paying a little bit extra, who cares, right? It doesn't matter. If the guy's doing all the things you're saying, a person who does it not as good, you're going to spend more time managing that person. You're going to have to hire somebody maybe to supervise that person. You're going to have more problems that you got to solve yourself. Don't what's the saying? Cut off your nose to spite your face, sort of thing. Just be aware of that. I'm not saying what the right answer is. I'm just presenting the other side of the equation here. The other thing that jumps out at me is that I'm not a tax attorney. I'm not even a CPA. But I would have this person issue you an invoice as if they were a 1099 employee. I would pay that invoice as an expense, And then that eliminates your tax issue that you're talking about right here. Now, is that exactly the way that it's supposed to be done? No, because you're supposed to, if he's a 1099 employee, if he's not really a 1099 employee, you're in violation of that you're trying to pass off a real employee as a 1099 employee. So that by itself is no good. But if he's an outside contractor and you hire him and you don't collect a W-9, you're supposed to do that and you're supposed to report it. But if you don't, but you still expense it, it's one of those, what's the saying, where you do it, ask for forgiveness later kind of thing. You know, I don't know how big your business is, but probably at the stage that you're at, that might be a way to go. Talk to your CPA about it and just see what comes out of it. That might be another way to look at it. But I would say calculate the value of this person. Again, it shouldn't be nebulous. You know what you're paying him. You know you're paying a little bit more in tax situation if that's the way it ends up. Calculate the value. If he's generating 5 times the money you're paying him, what do you care if you're paying him an extra 10 or 20%? You don't have to manage him. I'm always going to tell people that with all these things, get it down to numbers. Erica Wilkinson, her question is, what are things you have done to rid yourself of negative friendships and relationships? I have a cleaning business and e-commerce store looking to scale up into real estate and marketing. I have previous friends and relationships, and when I tell them about what's going on in my life and my goals, they always seem to get negative or tell me that I should just get a job at Walmart or that I think I'm better than other people or whatever. It's really hurting my feelings, and I'm trying to figure out how to overcome those feelings. Do I remove myself from those friendships, or what have you done to overcome those things in your entrepreneurial life? Erica, this is a great question for you and for everyone else to pay attention. I have some major words of wisdom here that jump immediately to mind, and they're very simple. You got to get rid of those friends. You got to get rid of them. And I don't know what the relationships are because you said friends and relationships. Okay, yep. Those are not the people that are going to help you get anywhere. If they're not supporting you, if they're kind of like half-assed supporting you, like, oh yeah, good for you, like, oh yeah, you're better, what do you think you're going to get somewhere? Like if that's their attitude, screw them. That's not helping you. That's going to be the thing that holds you back, because this whole entire entrepreneurial game, or even maybe like success of being able to move yourself ahead in your life, comes from in here first, in your own head. So if you have other people that are kind of like planting these seeds of doubt, that's not going to do any good. That's not going to be the thing that helps you succeed. And then when they stick that in there in your head, you're fighting 2 battles. You're fighting the outside world, then you're fighting the one in your head. So you have to let them go. And you have to find people, it's great that you're in AO, because everyone in AO is here because we're all working towards the same thing. We're all trying to make, we all share that common bond of what we're trying to do, and we're supportive of each other. And that's the people that you want to hang out with. You want to find, you've probably heard that thing where you're the, what's the saying? You're the sum total of the 5 people who are closest to you. So if you want to move up, then find 5 different people who are already higher than you and can help you move up. Just even mentally, just from a supportive perspective, even if they can't actually do anything directly, just by being people who are ambitious, who are successful, who are trying to do something, just by putting yourself with those people makes a huge difference in your ability to succeed first here. It's such an important question, and I feel I've seen this before, and I feel terrible that people in the world don't look at it and support those of us who are innately ambitious and want to try to do something. The one that got me the most in your note here was when your friends say that I think I'm better than other people or whatever. Yeah, that's terrible. Of course you're better than other people. You're trying to do something. Like, that's great. Like, that's a good thing, not a bad thing. You are better than other people, so go do it. Don't let somebody take you down for that. That's terrible. Anyway, if you want to talk about it more, I have some other stories I could share with you. But but I'm here for you. I'm supporting you. Everyone else is here to support you. So do that. The heck with them. All right. Last question. Belle Donovan. 2 questions. First, how do I develop a sales process and sales objection handling script for my business? 2, as a new product business, is it a good idea to incentivize new customers in order to make them a long-term customer? We sell magnetic eyelashes both online and in person. I have never established a professional sales process with scripts. Do I do this myself online? And if so, do you have recommended resources, or should I maybe hire a coach to help me? And the reason I ask about incentives is because there are a lot of crappy products out there that people try and then they hear about mine and are reluctant to purchase because of the crappy companies. What are the strategies to overcome that? Thanks so much. All right, cool. So first things first as it relates to scripts. So how do you develop a sales process? That's the main question. And you talk about objection handling, but that's part of a bigger question. So with sales processes, it's going to be the same answer that I've given for some of the other questions. You've got to bullet point it out. You've got to write it down. And you also have to be able to do it. If you're going to expect other people to do it as well, you need to make sure that either you can do it or somebody in the group who's figuring it out. Like there's an R&D process that has to happen with sales. You have to be able to plan it out and have it written down so you know it's repeatable and you know what parts in the process are working, what parts aren't. So you get that all documented out. Great. You test it, what's working, what's not working. That's where the objection handling starts coming in, because you're very meticulous about the responses that you're getting and what you're saying in response to those responses, and then you're documenting. So you can do all these things yourself, absolutely. I think it doesn't hurt to have somebody help you identify what parts are important, what things are not, and make sure you're measuring the right stuff. I'm happy to do that for you if you want to reach out to me. But it's like that's a big part of the process is that testing, because eventually you're going to get to the point where you've got it all documented and you've got all of your objections laid out and you know exactly who you're talking to, what they're going to say, and then you're answering the questions before the objections come up. That's a big part of it. If you know your questions or the objections that are going to come up, just answer it earlier on in the process, and then that way then people can't even hold it against you or whatever. And like to your point, yeah, if you can get a long-term customer, like if your lifetime value of your customer is, if there's an opportunity to have a reoccurring relationship, if you can calculate what your loss leaders, your incentives, are worth in the future, then you'll know that if you can spend them now, right? So if, let's say you're saying incentives, so I assume and based on the business you're in, let's say it's like buy 2 get 1 free. And so you're giving one away because you know that if people use it 3 times, 80% of the time they continue to buy. You have to measure those things. So it's not that incentives are good or incentives are bad. It's that, is it measurable? Can you prove it? And did you do the work to lay it all out? And then while you're going through the sales process, are you getting the feedback? Are you looking at the data and then tweaking to maximize the elements that aren't working? That's really all there is to it. It's just a step-by-step process of being able, again, to show value and create a process. So I think, and you also mentioned it's a new product business. If you don't have a lot of history, then yeah, you've got to start putting stuff out there and recording what happens when you put it out there. Different messaging, different markets, different price points. You got to play with these things. It's good to map it all out so you know kind of where you're going. But then when you put it out there, you're going to change it. There's going to be feedback that you get from the market that makes you want to change. So yeah, so I would recommend doing that. And again, reach out through AO if you want to look at it with me. I'm happy to go over it. And that goes for anybody. I'm very open and I love this stuff. It's all I do. So reach out. Okay, so that's it. I'm going to wrap it up, and thank you so much, everyone, for your time and attention. I will talk to you all on the next one. Have a good one.